لقومه ليبين لهم
دروس من المسجد النبوي الشريف.
In English.
In English.
In English.
The last advice that I'd like to mention tonight, inshallah ta'ala, and hopefully throughout Ramadan, it will be a time for us to remind one another of the virtues of this month and how we should be behaving in this month, and some of the things that we should be doing is the reading of the Qur'an. And that is because many people approach the Qur'an in the wrong manner. And they read for example, they read the different narrations where Imam al-Shafi'i, for example, used to finish the Qur'an, once a day in the last 10 nights of Ramadan. Many of the companions used to read the Qur'an once a week outside of Ramadan. In Ramadan, it was very rare that it would take them more than 3 days to read the entire Qur'an. And so we come to Ramadan and we're very excited and we begin to read the Qur'an in the same manner. But I want to mention something because I think it's an important point, and I don't know if I've mentioned it previously, and that is that their relationship with the Qur'an made it such that by simply reading the Qur'an, they were pondering the meanings of the Qur'an. By simply reading the Qur'an, they pondered the meanings of the Qur'an. For many of us, because of our lack of a relationship with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala outside of the month of Ramadan, it's two different ways that we have to approach the Qur'an. So the first, and I would recommend this, is that you have a time for tilawah. That is where you pick up the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and you read it. You read the book of Allah for whatever time period that you have allotted to do so. And so you may read a juz and a half, 2 juz, or something like that, depending on how much time that you have dedicated to it. But then you also need a time every day in Ramadan where I would say you read qira'at tadabbur. You read for pondering over the meanings of the Qur'an. Meaning that, for many of us, that we are going to have to take a tafsir, like Tafsir ibn Kathir, that has been translated to English, or Tafsir Abdurrahman bin Nasir al-Sa'di, or some other book that is available to explain the Qur'an in English and at least have a translation of the meanings of the Qur'an in English, where you also read that so that you can begin to ponder over the meanings of the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And obviously, there's not going to be the pondering of those who preceded us, those who were scholars of the Arabic language, those who were scholars of hadith and fiqh, and their reading of the Qur'an is different. But that doesn't mean that we can't get a lot out of the Qur'an, and even from reading the translation. We can get a lot from that. So take some time and divide your time, but use it wisely. The best time of the year to turn back to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is now. And that is why the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, in Ramadan, he used to read the Qur'an to Jibreel. And in the last Ramadan that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam lived before he died, he read the Qur'an to Jibreel twice. So I would recommend for all of you to perhaps take Tafsir ibn Kathir, for example, Tafsir al-Sa'di, or just perhaps the translation of the meanings of the Qur'an, and sit with someone else. Sit with your spouse, sit with your children, and read over it and talk about it. And if you have, because the majority of the Qur'an, you will find, the meanings are quite clear. And then there are other things which may be ambiguous, which some people understand and others don't, which maybe an Arabic speaker would understand, but the way it's been translated, it causes confusion. That's going to pale in comparison to what is very clear from the Qur'an, even the translation. So this is why you want to take that time, perhaps on a daily basis, to sit with your spouse, or to sit with a good friend, someone who is not going to waste your time and you're not going to waste their time. And you sit down and you read the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala together and ponder over those meanings. This is the best time of the year to do that. This is the time to return back to the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان